Hello everyone, in this video I will work examples for section 10.3. So here's the first problem. Find A, the derivative of f of x times s of x without using the product rule, and then B, find f prime of x times s prime of x. Remember that f prime denotes the derivative of f and s prime denotes the derivative of s. Note that the answer to part B is different from the answer to part A. So here we're given f of x and s of x. So we're looking at, let's call g of x to be f of x times s of x. So we're looking to find g prime of x. So before we do that, in A, we're asked to find the derivative without using the product rule. So what we're going to do is we're going to simplify. So let's find g of x first, x squared plus 1 times x to the 6. So distribute x to the 6. X to the 6 times x squared is x to the 8th plus x to the 6. To find the g prime of x, we're going to use the power rule. So let's recall the power rule real quick. If f of x is x to the n, f prime of x is n times x to the n minus 1. So in our case, we have x to the 8th. So derivative of x to the 8th is 8 times x to the 7th. And the derivative of x to the 6th is 6 times x to the 5th. So g prime of x is going to be 8 times x to the 7th plus 6 times x to the 5th. Now, in B, so this was A, in B, we're asked to find f prime of x times s prime of x. So f prime of x equals, using the power rule again, the derivative of x squared, which is 2x, plus the derivative of the constant 1, which is 0. So that is 2x. S prime of x is 6 times x to the 5th. F prime of x times s prime of x is actually 2x times 6 times x to the 5th, which is 12x to the 6. So notice that the derivative of a product is not the product of derivatives. This is just an example that shows you that they are different. Okay. Here's the next example. Find the derivative of t of x times b of x without using the quotient rule, and t prime of x, b prime of x. Okay. There's a typo in this problem. I copied this from the practice problems. Because we're asked to find t of x times b of x, this word here has to be product. So we're asked to find the derivative of t of x times b of x without using the product rule. So this is the same as the previous problem. So let's find t of x times b of x, and let's call it g of x equals t of x times b of x. That's going to be x to the 9th times x to the 6th, and that is x to the 15th. G prime of x is going to be the derivative of x to the 15th, which is 15 times x to the 15 minus 1, which is 15 times x to the 14. B, we want to find t prime of x times b prime of x. So t prime of x, using the quotient rule, is 9 times x to the 9 minus 1. So it's 9 times x to the 8th. The prime of x is 6 times x to the 6 minus 1, which is 6 times x to the 5th. Then t prime of x times b prime of x equals t prime of x is 9 times x to the 8th times b prime of x, 6 times x to the 5th, and that is 9 times 6 is 54 times x to the 8 plus 5, 13. Again, we see that the derivative of a product is not the same as the product of derivatives, because g prime of x, which is t of x times b of x, is just 15x to the 14th, and multiplying the derivatives of each of those expressions is 54 times x to the 13. Okay, so the next problem is find f prime of x and simplify. So we can find the derivative of f here by using the product rule. And the product rule says if f of x is a product of g of x times h of x, that means that f prime of x is g prime of x times h of x plus h prime of x times g of x. This is a product rule that was mentioned earlier, and we didn't use that. Or another method is simplify first and then take the derivative. I'm going to do both methods so we can practice the product rule. So in our case, f of x is 2 times x to the 5th, and we can look at this as g of x, and x to the 4th minus 4, we can look at that as h of x. So g prime of x is the derivative of 2 times x to the 5th. So we have a constant 2 times the derivative of x to the 5th, and that is 5 times x to the 5 minus 1. So that's 10x to the 4th. H prime of x is the derivative of x to the 4th minus 4, which is the derivative of x to the 4th. 4 times x to the 4 minus 1 minus the derivative of a constant 0. So we have 4 times x to the 3rd. Now we're going to use the product rule. F prime of x is equal to g prime of x, and g prime of x is 10 x to the 4th times h of x, which is x to the 4th minus 4, plus h prime of x, which is 4x to the 3rd times g of x, which is 2x to the 5th. So let's simplify this. Distribute 10x to the 4th into x to the 4th minus 4. That is 10x to the 8th minus 40x to the 4th plus 4x to the 3rd times 2 times x to the 5th is 8x to the 8th. That equals 10x to the 8 plus 8x to the 8 is 18x to the 8th minus 40x to the 4th. Okay, so let's do this problem by simplifying first, so meaning not using the product rule. So I'm going to write f of x as 2x to the 5th times x to the 4th minus 4. Distribute 2x to the 5th into x to the 4th minus 4. That is 2x to the 9th minus 8x to the 5th. Now I can find the derivative using the power rule and the rules of differentiation. So f prime of x is 2 times 9 times x to the 9 minus 1 minus 8 times 5 times x to the 5 minus 1. So 2 times 9 is 18 times x to the 8th minus 8 times 5 is 40 times x to the 4th. So see that we have the same derivative of f. All right, so here's another one. I'm going to do this in both ways again. So let's review the product rule. F of x equals g of x times h of x. Prime of x is g prime of x times h of x plus h prime of x times g of x. In our case, g of x equals 7x to the 4th. Sorry about that. My pen fell off my hand. Okay, and h of x equals x to the 3rd minus 2. G prime of x equals 7 times 4 times x to the 4 minus 1. So it's 28x to the 3rd. H prime of x equals 3 times x to the 3 minus 1 minus 0. Remember, the derivative of a constant is 0. So this we have 3x squared. Then f prime of x, which is the product of f of x times h of x, is going to be g prime of x, and that is 28x to the third times h of x to the third minus 2, plus h prime of x, which is 3x squared, times g of x, 7x to the fourth. So let's simplify this. Let's put the same type of parenthesis here. 28x to the 6 minus 56x to the third plus 21x to the 6th. That equals 49x to the 6th minus 56x to the third. Now I'm going to do the same problem, but not using the product rule. So I'm going to simplify f of x first. So f of x equals 7x to the fourth, x to the third minus 2 equals 7 times x to the 7th minus 14 times x to the 4th. Prime of x equals 7 times x to the 7 minus 1 minus 14 times 4 times x to the 4 minus 1 equals 49 times x to the 6th minus this is 14. I wrote 44 by mistake. So 14 times 4, that's 56x to the third. Okay. Okay, so find the first derivative, and here we have a fraction, so we're going to use the quotient rule. So let's say f of x is g of x over h of x. The quotient rule is f prime of x equals g prime of x times h of x minus g of x times h prime of x all over h of x squared. So notice that this is similar, kind of similar to the product rule. The difference is that we're going to subtract the second term and then square the denominator. Okay, so our f of x is x of x plus 44. So g of x, let's write this. Well, equals g of x, and h of x is the denominator. So g of x is x, and h of x is x plus 44. G prime of x using the power rule is 1. And h prime of x is 1 plus 0 is 1 as well. So we're going to use the quotient rule now. F prime of x is equal to, so here we have the line for our fraction, g prime of x, and g prime of x is 1 times h of x, which is x plus 44, minus g of x, which is x, times h prime of x, which is 1 divided by h of x squared, which is x plus 44 squared. Equals 1 times x plus 44 is x plus 44 minus x over x plus 44 squared. And this simplifies to 44 over x plus 44 squared. So in this problem, we had to use the quotient rule because we have a fraction. We have a numerator over denominator, and the quotient rule is given here on the side. Here's another one with quotient rule. I'm going to use the quotient rule because our f of x is x over x minus 50. So we're going to call the numerator to be g of x. We're going to call the denominator to be h of x. So let's write the quotient rule. F prime of x is going to be g prime of x times h of x minus g of x times h prime of x over h of x squared. So one way to remember this is that we're going to have a denominator, which is a square denominator we start with, and the numerator is similar to the product rule, but the difference is that we have a minus instead of plus. Okay, so g of x is x, and h of x is x minus 50. G prime of x is 1. H prime of x is 1 as well, because 1 minus 0 is 1. Prime of x is equal to g prime of x, which is 1 times h of x, x minus 50, minus g of x, which is x, times h prime of x, which is 1, divided by h of x squared, which is the denominator squared, x minus 50 all of it squared. So let's simplify this. 1 times the quantity x minus 50 is x minus 50, minus x times 1 is x over x minus 50 squared. X minus x is 0, so we have negative 50 over x minus 50 squared. All right, let's move on. Okay, so in this example, we're going to have two parts. We're asked to find f prime of x. Okay, so my pen is not working for some reason. It's working here. Okay, so here we go. Find f prime of x and find the equation of the line tangent to the graph of f at x equals 1. Okay, so let's review the equations of lines first. If we're given a point and the slope, we find the equation of the line by using the point slope formula. Okay, which is y minus y0 equals the slope times x minus x0. So in our problem, we want to find the equation of the line tangent to the graph. So let's say this is a graph, and we want that tangent at the point when x equals 1. So in that case, the coordinates of the point are going to be 1, and f of 1. Because we're looking at the tangent at this point, the slope of the tangent at x equals 1 is actually f prime of 1. So here we have the point, and here we have the slope. And this is the reason that we're asked to find f prime of x first, because we're going to need that to calculate the slope at x equals 1. All right, so we're ready to go. I'm going to use the product rule. I'm gonna call the first factor here to be g of x, and the second to be h of x. And f prime of x is g prime of x times h of x plus g of x times h prime of x. We did this before, so I'm going to do this again here just to review the product rule. But if you wish, you can simplify this first, meaning FOIL this and then use the power rules in order to find the derivative. Okay, so g of x is 1 plus 4x. That means that g prime of x is 0 plus 4 equals 0. The derivative of 4x is 4. H of x is 5 minus 4x. H prime of x is 0 minus 4 equals negative 4. Then f of x is g prime of x, which is 4 times h of x, which is 5 minus 4x, plus g of x, which is 1 plus 4x, times h prime of x, which is negative 4. Let's simplify this real quick. 20 minus 16x minus 4 minus 16x. That equals 16 minus 32x. So f prime of x is 16 minus 32x. Okay, since we want the equation of the tangent line, we know that the point is with coordinates 1, f of 1. So f of 1 is negative 16. Plug in 1 for x. You're going to find negative 16. What the heck? Let's just find it. F1 equals 16 minus 32 times 1, 16 minus 32, negative 16. There we go. Got to do it step by step so we don't make a mistake, just to be confident here. Okay, so slope is f prime of 1. All right, I think I messed it up. This is f prime of 1. Negative 16. Yeah, I thought I was fixing it, not to make a mistake. Okay, so let's fix this one here. F of 1, plugging 1 for x into f of x right here. F of 1 is 1 plus 4 times 1 times 5 minus 4 times 1. 5 times 1 equals 5. Okay. That's why we have to check after ourselves. It's easy to make a mistake. So we're looking at the point 1, 5. Okay, so let's use the point slope formula. I have only a little bit more room left here. Okay. Y minus y0. So y0, x0. So y0 is 5 equals the slope negative 16 times x minus x0, and that is 1. So we'll simplify this into y minus 5 equals negative 16x plus 16, which is equivalent to y equals, we add 5 to both sides, negative 16x plus 21. So the equation of the tangent line at the point with the x coordinate x equals 1 and the y coordinate y equals 5 is negative 16x plus 21 because the slope is negative 16. Okay, so in this problem, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to find the derivative and the equation of the tangent line. So in here, we have a fraction, so we're going to use the quotient rule. Let's review that a little bit. F prime of x equals g prime of x h of x minus g of x h prime of x over h of x squared. So in our case, the numerator g of x is x minus 1. The numerator h of x is 5x minus 4. G prime of x is 1. H prime of x is 5. So f of x equals g prime of x, which is 1, times h of x, which is 5x minus 4, minus g of x, x minus 1, times h prime of x, which is 5, over the denominator squared. Simplify this. Okay, where did I get squared here? 5x minus 4 squared. And then we have 5x minus 4 minus 5x. Distribute the 5 into x and into negative 1. Be careful with this minus here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have minus. So this minus here is this minus here. I'm just going to distribute 5 into x minus 1. So 5 times x is 5x minus 5. It is better to do an extra step than make a mistake with a sign. We all make mistakes, and I'm trying not to make one. Okay, so denominator 5x minus 4 squared. So let's simplify further. 5x minus 4. Now I'm going to distribute the negative into 5x minus 5. So here we have minus 5x plus 5. 5x and 5x will cancel out. Negative 4 plus 5 is 1 over 5x minus 4 squared. Okay, so now we need to find the equation of the line tangent to the graph. So to find the equation of the line, we're going to use point slope, and that is y minus y0 equals m times x minus x0, where m is the slope, and that is f prime of 2, because we want to find the equation of tangent line at the point when x is 2. So the slope is f prime of 2, and f prime of 2 is 1 over 5 times 2 minus 4 squared. That is 10 minus 4, 6, so 1 over 36. The point has coordinates 2, f of 2. So let's find f of 2. 2 minus 1 over 5 times 2 minus 4. 2 minus 1 is 1. 10 minus 4 is 6. So the point is the coordinates 2 and 1/6. So we're going to plug these into this equation. Y minus y0, which is 1/6, equals the slope m, which is 1 over 36 times x minus x0, and x0 is 2. So 2 is x0, 1 over 6 is y0. 1 over 36 is m. Okay, so simplify this. Y minus 1/6 equals 1 over 36x minus 1 over 18. As a result, add 1/6 to both sides. We're going to have y equals 1 over 36x. Okay, I don't have any room where to find 1/6 minus 1 over 18. Okay. I'm going to let you do that. I don't have room, so I'm just going to write minus 1 over 18 plus 1 over 6. So I'm just going to write the answer. Y equals 1 over 36x plus 2 over 18. And 2 over 18 simplifies to 1/9. Okay. Okay. Find f prime of x and the values of x where f prime of x is 0. Okay, so we have a product here. Let's have g of x and h of x. Let's review the product rule. F prime of x equals g prime of x, h of x, plus g of x times h prime of x. Okay, so let's find g prime of x. That is 2. H prime of x is 2x. So f prime of x is going to be g prime of x, which is 2 times x squared plus 84 plus g of x, 2x minus 33 times h prime of x, which is 2x. Let's simplify this. 2x squared plus 2 times 84, 168, plus 4x squared minus 66x. I distribute 2x into 2x and 2x into 33. Simplify this. 6x squared minus 66x plus 168. So f prime of x is 6x squared minus 66x plus 168. So this is the first part. We found the first derivative. Then we want to find the values of x where f prime of x is 0. Okay. So for that, we're going to set f prime of x equal to 0. So we have 6x squared minus 66x plus 168 equals 0. It's a quadratic expression. Let's try to solve this by factoring. I see that 6 is a common factor, which means I can divide everything by 6 to simplify my equation. 6x squared divided by 6 is x squared minus 66x divided by 6 is 11x plus, okay, 168 divided by 6 plus 28 equals 0. Okay, so let's try to factor this by guessing an error. Break down x squared as x on x. We're looking at factors of 28 that add up to negative 11. Since we have positive 28 and negative 11, we're going to get both factors negative. Okay, so how about 4 and 7? Negative 4 and negative 7. Negative 4 times negative 7 is 28. Negative 4 minus 7 is negative 11. Okay, so minus 4 minus 7. Set the factors equal to 0. And x minus 7 equal to 0. X equals 4 and x equals 7. So when x equals 4 and x equals 7, f prime of x is 0. So f prime of 4 is 0 and f prime of 7 is 0. Okay, in this example, we're looking at applications of derivatives, and this is the last objective that we're going to be working with. Okay, so we're given this scenario. The total sales of S in thousands of dollars and thousands of DVDs of a certain movie. So we're selling movies and we're finding that the total sales in number of DVDs are given by the following formula, where T is the number of months since the release. Use the formula to answer the questions. So we're given S of T equals 60T squared over T squared plus 150. We're asked to find S prime of T. Since our sales function is a fraction, we have to use the quotient to find the derivative. So let's write that here on the side. S prime of t is going to be, if we call the numerator to be g of x, and the denominator to be h of x, the formula for the quotient is g prime of x times h of x minus g of x times h prime of x over h of x squared. Okay, so what is g prime of x? Well, in our case, t is our variable. Let's fix our variable. Okay, so g prime of t equals 60 times 2 times t, so it's 100 t. H prime of t is 2t plus 0 equals 2t. So, okay, so let's fix this variable here, x. Just a quick reminder here with the mistakes that I'm making. So every time I make a mistake, there's a room for learning something. The variable, whatever letter we use, we've got to recognize what that variable represents. So the number of months since the release is t, even if I put x on s prime of x, whatever we call the variable doesn't matter. So let's go back to having s for our sales and t for the number of months. All right, so s prime of t is going to be g prime of t, which is 120t times h of t, and that is t squared plus 150 minus g of t, which is 60 times t squared times h prime of t, which is 2t, divided by h of t, which means the denominator square, we square the denominator, t squared plus 150 squared. Let's simplify this. 120t times t squared is 120t to the third plus 120 times 150, 80,000. T minus 120 t to the third over t squared plus 150 squared. 120 t to the third and 120 t to the third will be cancelled out. So s prime of t equals 18,000 t over t squared plus 150 squared. Okay, let's circle this because we're going to need this. Let's find S of 10. S of 10 means total sales after 10 months. I'm going to plug this into our original function. 60 times 10 squared over 10 squared plus 150. 60 times 100 over 100 plus 150, 6,000 over 250. Okay, so I'm going to write this here. And I need to find room. Okay, so S of 10 is 24, but our sales are given in thousands. So multiply this by 1,000. So S of 10 is going to be 24,000. So 24,000 DVDs. We need to find S prime of 10. So we're going to put 10 into the S prime function. So that is 18,000 times 10 over 10 squared plus 150 all of this squared. All right. 180,000 over 250 squared. Okay, so I used the calculator and I found 2.88. Now remember, the sales are given in thousands, so we're gonna have S prime of 10 to be 2.88 times 1,000, so it's 2,880 DVDs. All right, so continuing the same problem we have another question. What do the values of S10 and S prime of 10 indicate? So S10 indicates the number of DVDs sold after 10 months have passed. So at T equals 10. Remember, S prime is the derivative, and that is the rate of change. It's the instantaneous rate of change, which in this context will estimate the total number of sales when we increase by 1 month, which will be the change in the number of sales when we move on to the next month. So let's look at the choices here. Let's recall we found S of 10 to be 24,000 and S prime of 10 was 2,880. So S of 10 is the total sales after 10 months, and S prime of 10 is showing us the increase per month after 10 months have passed. So choice A says after 10 months, the total sales were 24,000. That's what we found, DVDs. And the sales are increasing at the rate of 2,880 DVDs per month. This sounds like it, but let's look at the other choices. After 10 months, the total sales, okay, total sales is 2,880 DVDs. This is wrong because S of 10 was 24,000. C is wrong as well. The number doesn't match. D is wrong as well because the rate of change for us was 2,880 and in here it says 2.88. So the correct answer is A. All right, so now using the results from part B, we want to estimate the total sales after 11 months. Okay, so since S of 10 is 24,000, we know that when 10 months have passed, the sales were 24,000. Now, to find out how many DVDs were sold after 11 months, well, we could go in and we can find S of 11, or we can estimate S of 11, which is sales after 11 months, to be the sales at 10 months plus the change per month after 10 months. And that's what we had evaluated on B. So plus S prime of 10. Because S prime of 10 tells us the increase per month when we have 10 months passed. Okay, so S of 10 was 24,000 plus 2,880. Let's find that out. All right, so I applied the decimal calculator and I found 26,880 DVDs. So S11 equals 26,880. Okay, just a quick note here is that we are estimating by using the first derivative, we are estimating. So if you want to challenge yourself a little bit, find S of 11, put 11 into the sales function. You'll see that that's a little bit different than what we got in here. All right, so this is it for examples from 10.3.